overall, this expansion draft is going to be messy.
Woo, child. Welcome to We Need to Talk Now, presented by AT&T. I'm Alicia J, and I'm here with Ashley Nicole Moss.
Hello. Welcome back. First Monday after Thanksgiving.
Man.
It's an interesting Monday, to say the least. I don't know about you, Alicia, but it takes me a while to get back into the swing of things. I'm the type of person who needs a vacation from a vacation just so I can get ready to return back to work. But here we are. We were talking about this before the podcast kicked off. We cannot believe it's already December.
No.
This year has flown by. I'm very concerned about how fast time is moving. I don't know about you.
I'm concerned about it too. I'm also concerned about how the sports, I feel like the seasons are coming and going just like that.
Yeah, chill. Like, y'all in a hurry? Relax.
Right. What is happening?
Yeah. November was in a hurry, girl.
It was in a hurry.
November had places to be. So
Listen, I don't know about you too. I'm still kind of full from Thanksgiving. So I don't know how this pod is going to go because
I've been eating air and water for the past 2 days. So
air and water?
Girl, I had to get air and water.
No. What about those leftovers? How long?
I didn't have as many leftovers this year as I normally do because I had some friends who were in town from New York and their flights actually got canceled going back to New York just because of the bad weather that they were having.
Oh, no.
So I had a bunch of people that weren't supposed to be in town come pull up, ate plates and had a good time. So a lot of our leftovers were consumed in the first day because we had extra mouths, which honestly, Alicia, I'm not mad at it. I didn't eat food for 4 days.
Yeah.
Like, spare me.
I wish I have a whole bunch of leftovers in my fridge and I'm just kind of like, I wish it wasn't there in a way because I have been eating so crazily.
What is
if that's
the
a word?
leftover threshold? How many days after Thanksgiving is it appropriate to still be eating Thanksgiving leftovers?
It really depends on the dish because some stuff, like I don't mess with chicken long term. So if anything had chicken in it, turkey, like any kind of poultry or anything, it makes me nervous because I'm not trying to, I just feel like you could get sick off that. Also, I have a fear of getting food poisoning big time. Like it's the worst thing ever. And so I would err on the side of like tomorrow's probably the last day for me. And these aren't even like Thanksgiving. These were post Thanksgiving stuff that we made, so it's not. But to me, even from bringing the leftovers from just the weekend, tomorrow's the last day for me. I wouldn't touch it after that.
Okay. Good game plan. Good game plan. Speaking of game plan, we have a lot to get into for today's show. Like a lot.
We do. Listen, the expansion draft for the WNBA for the Valkyries is upon us. And it's like a big deal. It's this week, so we're walking you through everything that you need to know about that, including, some of the players we think they could select and also players that are obviously protected in that draft. So we'll be talking more about that. It's kind of crazy. So stay tuned because you're going to want to know all about it. The NCAA volleyball tournament is here. And let me tell you, I'm so excited to see who comes out on top because there's a lot of great teams this year, a lot of competition. We're going to see some really good matches. So we'll be talking all about that. And then Katrina Adams, we absolutely love her. She's going to join the pod to talk about the growth of tennis in women's sports. So we have all of that for you and more.
So much more. But first, we got to get into the regular schmegular and remind you to follow us on all of our social media channels, us as individuals, us as a podcast, and also to make sure you are subscribed. You got your notifications turned all the way up on YouTube because we're there as well. We post all our episodes in addition to behind the scenes footage, all the long form stuff that we can't post on social. But if you are not a podcast watcher and you're more of a listener, we got you there too. This QR code right here will make us available wherever you get your pods. We're on Spotify, we're on Apple. So look, there is no reason to not be tapped in with We Need to Talk Now, presented by AT&T.
Well, listen, we have a lot to talk about when it comes to the WNBA Expansion Draft. Let's just dive right in because there's a lot.
There is a lot.
Man, I'm telling you, the WNBA has a lot going on this season. Actually, the schedules just dropped today. I was really pumped to see the Valkyries schedule, even though they don't have a team, they have a full schedule out. And it was amazing because, being in Oakland, Bay Area, and then also working for the Golden State Warriors for a number of years. I should be like, yay. But anyways, I'm not gonna get my Bay Area card revoked. But anyway, seeing a schedule of a WNBA team that is going to be in the Bay Area was just special to me today when I saw it. Working for the Warriors as long as I did, there was always talk about bringing a WNBA team in. I definitely was for it. We have an amazing market for it. And to see that there is a full schedule out and there will be games coming up is just really special. But to get to those games, we have to have this expansion draft. And so it's set to take place this week on December 6th at 6:30 p.m. Eastern. Ahead of the draft, we're definitely here to break down how it works. So this year, the Golden State Valkyries, which we just talked about, they're going to be the 13th WNBA franchise. And they'll be picking their team that literally is not there in this expansion draft. They'll be able to select a player from each of the current 12 WNBA teams.
Yeah, and each existing WNBA franchise has submitted a roster list. This is where things get real scandalous, which includes every single player they have the rights to, be they active players, suspended players, a draft or reserved list, co-ed players, and retired players. Now, up to 6 players from that list can be protected and will not be made available for selection. Those players are often the best players on each team. For example, New York is obviously going to protect Sabrina and Stewie. They're not going anywhere. So the Valkyrie fans, you think you getting Sabrina? You not.
Absolutely not.
Indiana's not letting Caitlin Clark go or Leah Boston, so you can take them off your list as well.
Well, and each team's list was due last Monday, and those lists actually are not made public. What do you think about the list not being made public? Like the secret protection list.
I think it's smart. I'll tell you why. Because let's say the Valkyries don't select whoever's on that list, right? You then have to return to the franchise that puts you up for selection and still play without having any animosity or a chip on your shoulder. Now, in the grand scheme of things, the WNBA is a business and there are no feelings in business and everyone's available for trade and everyone can go ahead and be moved and things like that. We know that. We've seen that. We've seen it in any single sport you can name. Loyalty doesn't always buy you loyalty in return. But I think that in the effort of camaraderie and going into a season on the best terms possible, it is best that the front office and only those that need to know who is on this list know who's on this list. And players, if you ask me, do not need to know. This is classified information. That is just my opinion.
Listen, if you exclude me rather from the list, the protected list, and I'm on your team, Valkyries, please pick me so I can play against you. Please. Like, the drama would be completely real if that were to happen. I don't think there's any way that you could do that. We would have all kinds of WNBA threads jumping off. Okay.
There would be a war zone.
Yeah. So
yeah,
they did the right thing by keeping all of that private for sure.
Definitely. And one other thing to note is that Golden State doesn't have to build its entire team through the expansion draft. Other teams will trade for protection in expansion drafts, giving up picks or certain players. Additionally, the Valkyries could opt to pass on selecting a player from a certain team in order to maintain roster flexibility. So following the draft, they could also build their roster through things like free agency, the upcoming WNBA draft. Right now, the Valkyries hold the 5th overall pick in this upcoming draft and the 5th pick in the 2nd and the 3rd round. So there'll be a lot of talent in the draft that they can also use to build their roster. Now, there were a number of big name players ineligible for the expansion draft, like Dewana Bonner and Brianna Jones in Connecticut, who are set to be unrestricted free agents and have hit their core designation limits. So that's another layer to this expansion draft.
Yeah, another layer. And it's really one thing that I want us all to do is just hang on to all of this, because not only are we going to have this expansion draft with the Valkyries, we're going to have Portland next year, and then we're going to have Toronto as they build their roster. I think they're beginning play in 2026.
Right.
So
So
they'll
another
be
year.
doing this as well, which will also be interesting. So this is kind of like the blueprint for how the years are going to come with this expansion draft.
Yeah. And while we talk about this expansion draft, we also, have to look at who would be the right fit for this expansion team or this new team added to the WNBA organization as a whole. So we're going to go ahead and go down the list of some of the names or some of the teams rather, and what that could look like. So let's start with Dallas. So Dallas had an interesting number of potential unprotected players. They also had the number 1 overall player in the WNBA draft. Obviously, we know that the Wings will probably be going after a girl. You might have heard of her. She plays for UConn. Um, but ideally, do you think that they are going to pass, or why or why not?
Well, when you say, when we look at the team, right? When we look at the
Right.
Dallas Wings and the players that they have on that, and the players that I don't think will be protected, um, I would probably say a good pickup for the Valkyries would be Kalani Brown. Like, she's an
Okay.
amazing center. She is
Well, before you finish that thought real quick, I just want to remind everybody that, again, there are players who are ineligible, and the player for Dallas as ineligible is Natasha Howard. So just want to put that out there as well.
right, right. And there's a number. I mean, obviously, you're going to have players that are, I mean, we just know are going to be protected, like Arike is going to be protected, Satu. I think Tierra will be definitely protected as well. But when I look at the players that aren't, in what you really need, you need a solid center on your team, and somebody that I think, she's a great player. She has a contract through 2028, which would be good for them. And she would be a solid center, would be her. So Kalani Brown would be an excellent pickup. If she wasn't protected, I don't foresee them protecting her, but she would be great. But actually, as we're starting this conversation, do you think that it's more important for them to get the best possible players, or to play with having a team in mind, like the different positions of a team and that kind of thing? Or is it just like, hey, pick up the best one that is there?
I think they have to also envision what they want their team to be, right? There are teams that are more defensive focused, and, offensively, they may be, I don't want to use the word weak, but they may not be as strong as some other teams, but they win in grit, right? You have some teams that are all offense, not so much defense. I, for one, always lean more to the side. I think defense still wins championships. I know that's an antiquated ideology. I still think that's true. Now, I don't say that to say that you can't have any scoring power on your roster. But I think that the Valkyries, and I wonder what these conversations are like leading up to the draft. And it's kind of hard to do this when you don't necessarily have at least one focal piece to kind of build around. I think it'd be easier if you had like one player that like we know for a fact we have this player, we're using this player, and build around that player and that skill set. You're kind of doing it drastically in reverse.
Mhm.
But I would assume that the conversations that they're having is, what is our team identity going to be? And I think they're going to look around the league at the top dogs. They're going to look at New York. They're going to look at Connecticut. They're going to look at Vegas. They're going to look at even some of the teams that maybe didn't perform as well last season, but have a lot of great attributes like Indiana and even Dallas, and say, what can we take from each of these teams and essentially build a super team? So if you ask me, I think it's more so along the lines, I wouldn't focus so heavily on position. I would focus more on personnel, like players, because I think that there are a lot of players that can serve multiple positions.
No.
You don't want to get too caught up in like, okay, we need a center, we need a point guard. I want to know how these pieces will work. And essentially, the Valkyries have a little bit of an advantage because you're able to like scope your competition and take your pickings. Like that's kind of an advantage, essentially.
No, I think it is too, and I'll be really, really interested to see, who exactly what players are protected, right? I mean, we won't know that per se, but that will kind of be like, if they don't pick this player, they probably were protected. You know what I mean? Certain things, but also, like you said, them just kind of having a bird's eye view of it all and seeing how they can move these pieces around to make the best team that they can. I also think that marketing will be an aspect of this too. There are going to be some players that are left that probably have like a bigger following, a bigger identity in this league. They're going to be a draw for maybe like, for example, I would say like Haley Jones is one that would be a good pickup from the Atlanta Dream. She played at Stanford. She's, very much from California, the Bay Area. People know who she is and they would want to come see her and support her. She's also a great player, don't get it twisted. But I think all of those attributes would make her an amazing pickup in this draft. So how much do you think that plays into it?
I think all of it will play into it. I mean, you're talking about a new franchise. They're starting from the ground up. I think that, ultimately the goal is to win games, right? It doesn't matter if you have 100 followers on Instagram or 100 million, the goal is to win. But I do think that when you look at it again from the business perspective, winning games is super important, but also filling out the arena is important. Having a fan base is important. Having a following is important. All those things are intertwined with one another. So I think they're going to try to see how they can kill two birds with one stone and go after the players that maybe, fill both of those voids. And if those players exist, and they also are players who they think can immediately make an impact in some of the other names that they're looking at, I think absolutely that's something that we can expect. We can jump, we'll skip over Indiana. I feel like Indiana is one of those teams that, Erica Wheeler could be up for grabs, but I don't know. I have a feeling that Indiana is going to try to keep as many of their players together as possible. I just think they're building something really fantastic in Indiana, but the Aces is where we can have a really interesting conversation because obviously the core five, excuse me, is not going anywhere. But both CBS and ESPN had Kate Martin as a projection. Sorry, just ESPN had Kate Martin as a projected protection. CBS Sports had Alicia Clark. What are you thinking about that?
I personally don't think they give up Kate Martin, to be honest with you. I don't think that's a move.
About that.
Yeah, I don't think that's a move that they're gonna make. Like, did Kate make a huge impact this year? Like on the court, no, but in the locker room, she did big time. And for the fan base, she's a fantastic player. It was just her first year, like there's a lot of promise there. So I probably wouldn't go with Kate. I would actually go with somebody more like Megan Gustafsson.
Mm.
Um, she's
And also to your point about Kate, real quick, also she's on a rookie contract, so that's helpful when you talk about, the cap and stuff like that. It doesn't really move the needle. So
yeah. But Megan is definitely someone that I can see in the Bay on the Valkyries. She kind of fits the identity and makeup that they've kind of been portraying that they want in a team. Obviously they haven't said exactly what they're looking for, but just from just kind of like talking around in kind of the projections that I've seen and everything, she does fit into that. She's another solid center that I think you definitely need on your team. I could see her doing well in that market. She has a pretty good following as well, but when I look at that team and what they're willing to move and that kind of thing and who could be protected, I could see her as a really good pick.
yeah. I know a team that I'm really interested in, a name that I'm really interested in. When we go to Los Angeles and we talk about the Sparks, a name that has been circulating for a while now, Lexi Brown. And I think that when you look at Lexi, incredible talent, but obviously has had a very tumultuous relationship with the Sparks, obviously dealing with her Crohn's disease or I'm sorry, I think she has lupus. I want to double check that, but I think
it's Crohn's.
I think it's Crohn's. Yes. Yeah. So obviously going through, all the ups and downs with having that disease. My uncle actually has that, so I know how debilitating it can be when it gets really bad. Um, so because of that though, has had a very up and down relationship with the Sparks, hasn't been able to play consistently, hasn't been able to play full seasons. And she's been very vocal about, trying to get back into the swing of things every time that these disease kind of like knocks
Yeah.
her out and she has to kind of start all over again. But I think also when you talk about the Sparks, I think you talk about a team that um has run out of patience in just general with their organization, with their franchise, and wants to get back to their winning days, especially being in LA. The microscope is different. It's Hollywood. You get the Lakers there, you have USC in the area, and they're going to be balling out. And as much as I would hate it because I love Lexi, I love her on the Sparks, I would not be surprised if that was a name that they kind of offered up.
I couldn't agree more. She was when I look at that roster, she just stands out the most for me. I think it would actually be a great selection for the Valkyries. Yes, she's had her ups and downs with her health for sure, but we know that she's a baller. And
For
she,
sure, that she
yeah,
is.
we know that she is. And she also has a great profile when it comes to social media, what she does, like even the stuff she does off the court, she,
Yeah,
does a
Gil's
lot.
Arena, True Religion, like, as a
Yeah.
whole Rolodex, a profile, yeah.
Yeah. And so I agree with you. It has been frustrating. I know for her, but also just as a fan watching and knowing that she has so much more to give. And I think, it will be her time. And I think the Valkyries would fare really well from picking Lexi Brown.
Yeah, and I mean, before we wrap up this conversation, we gotta go to a team that has gone through a lot of changes, and we're constantly talking about them, and rightfully so. It's the team that Angel Reese is a part of. We talk about Chicago. Obviously, Camila Cardoso and Angel Reese are gonna be protected. We
Yeah.
know that. They are the
Kennedy
future of
Carter.
this.
Yeah.
Yeah, future of this franchise. We know that. Some of the names that could be out there, one of the interesting ones for me, well, two of them, you have Mariah Jefferson and you have Isabel Harrison. Look, Chicago's gone through a lot of changes, new head coach, a lot further along they have been in previous seasons
Mhm.
post the Candace Parker era, excuse me. And obviously they're looking to win, they're looking to compete. Angel Reese coming in and Camilla as well coming in the same draft as Caitlin Clark. Obviously, you have your eyes on Indiana, what they're doing, what they're going to achieve. You want to compete, you want to make some noise. Who are you thinking that is going to kind of maybe be on the chopping block for Chicago?
Listen, if she is there and not protected, because she's one of the players I have going either way, based
Mhm.
on, but Elizabeth Williams, like if she's there and she's not protected, you gotta go with Elizabeth Williams. It would be, to me, there's no other one to pick if she's available, right?
Right. The
But
if. We don't know. We don't
yeah,
see the
if
list. We want to put out there. We have not seen the list, people.
we
Don't
we
come at
have
us.
and we
Okay.
ain't trying to start nothing
Nope.
either.
No.
So, um, but based on what you're saying, I mean, Isabel Harrison is always somebody that like I would want her on my team.
Also a great social media profile.
Yeah,
She does a lot of stuff in the fashion world, very pretty, very, just
yeah.
Model S. Does, again, has a big profile, could help bring awareness to this new franchise, this new organization. Um, Overall, this expansion draft is going to be messy. I just
Woo, child.
that's such this segment. My general consensus, my takeaway from this segment is hold on to your horses, guys. This is gonna get sticky.
Yeah, hold on to your horses, but also just I'm really interested to see how they orchestrate all the moving pieces to get the best team, because with the money that they have, with the new coach that they have, the GM, obviously everyone's new, but they're really hungry to prove themselves because they're in the spaces of being a GM and a head coach that they haven't been in before. And I know that all the minds in there, they're working on overtime, looking at all the pieces, how they fit together, how can we maximize everything. They also have draft picks that, they have to kind of look at and
Right.
see what they want there. So it will just be so interesting to track it and see kind of like, oh, I see what they're forming. I see what they're trying to do here. Also, we see who was not protected that should have been protected. All of those things. It's just gonna be a time. I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward
It's
to it.
gonna be a time for sure. You might want to lock into WNBA Twitter because it's gonna be a time. It's that much for sure. So
Yes. Well, in a time that we always love, every single show is our favorite segment, Connecting Changes Everything, presented by AT&T. And Ashley, this week we're taking it back to when we were in New York for the 10th anniversary shows. We got to interview all of the We Need to Talk hosts. And this week we're talking to Trailblazer Katrina Adams about the growth of tennis and just the growth of women's sports overall. An amazing conversation, so definitely check it out. We are here with a woman of many firsts. She's a tennis pioneer. She's a tennis executive. She's a sports commentator. And she is an author of Own the Arena. Listen, that's just to name a few. I could keep naming things that she has done, but we're honored to be here with Katrina Adams. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Listen, I have learned so many things from you from working this position, but you've been here for much longer than I have. You've been here for 10 years. We're celebrating the 10 years of We Need to Talk.
Woo-hoo.
What I know, it's just been amazing. Obviously, a historic and groundbreaking show. What have you seen change in the 10 years since we've started this amazing franchise, really?
Oh my goodness. Outside of my looks. This has been an amazing opportunity for all of us who have been on the show. I remember having this meeting in like this conference room to talk about the show or the possibilities of it before we even went on air. And having the opportunity to work with these amazing women, these journalists, these broadcasters, these athletes, has been a monumental moment for me in my career, but also in our relationships and the friendships that have evolved from this. But to see us all grow and develop together, and to see the storylines that have come out of this and the people that we have all met on the show has just been amazing. And I think to see that we as women, I think they said that we wouldn't last because we were women and that we would be catty and we'd talk over one another and we would never be able to really talk about sports. Wrong. It's been phenomenal. And so it's just been a joy.
But with that, 10 years, a lot has changed. It's definitely different. The landscape for women in sports is definitely different. But when you heard about this show and they asked you to be on it, did you have any reservations at all because of things like that? Because of people saying things like that?
Oh, I did not have a reservation about it. I was actually thrilled. I think I was recruited because at the time I was the president, chairman, and CEO of the USTA. So I had a couple different hats that I was wearing. One, I was a former professional athlete, so I could bring my athletic prowess to the conversation, my experience to the conversation as an athlete, but then I could bring the business hat to the conversation. So as we talked about a lot of different issues in sport, I could go either way. What was my experience as an athlete on the court or the mentality of an athlete? Or if there was a business issue or something that came up, what would I do in that situation? So it was kind of fun for me because I could really come from a few different angles or just from an analyst perspective. So that was very cool for me. Whereas some of my other colleagues and co-hosts were maybe just one side or the other. So I think the growth from even my perspective and learning how to even navigate being in this seat or with this mic has been really cool for me.
I want to talk about the growth, not on the set, but on the court or the clay or wherever it is that you're playing. I mean, so many barriers have already been broken down in the sport of tennis, especially when it comes to women and women of color, Black women specifically. And it feels like we're constantly chasing who the next Serena is going to be. And there are a lot of names to choose from: Naomi Osaka, Coco Gauff. Do you think that we will get one singular kind of icon in the sport, or because of the work of yourself, Serena, Venus, so many other names, that now it isn't just one person. Now it can be a bunch of other women of color, Black women, kind of dominating the sport for a very long time.
Yeah, I think there's so much talent that's out there. The talent pool is getting larger and wider. And I think that's the beauty of the sport, especially for tennis, that we do see so many women of color. And, you know, we have to take a step back and say there's never going to be another Serena. I mean, what she has done in the sport is, you know, is mind-blowing. 23 majors. You know, she was chasing the 24th to break that with Margaret Court. And, you know, she fell a little short, had a lot of opportunities, but there's not going to be another Serena. Definitely in our lifetime. But, you know, there is the, you know, Naomi Osaka that has done well. And then, of course, she's taken a pause and had a child, which is great. Now she's back on tour. And then there's Coco Gauff that is, you know, still young. She's 20, not quite an adult yet, who is chasing that dream with her first major and now has a doubles major. But we'll see what's there. But I think everybody wants to be their own self and not be compared to the greats of the game. And I think that's a good thing for these young athletes, is they want to be the next Coco Gauff, the next Naomi Osaka, and not that next Serena Williams, because that's where the pressure is. You know, I think on the men's side in particular, there's always that next Arthur Ashe. It's not going to be next Arthur Ashe, but we're going to have the next Francis Tiafoe or the next, you know, Ben Shelton, perhaps. But, you know, women's sports, though, man, we're killing it. We're rocking it in every sport at every level. And that's what's been fun for me over the last 10 years, is just seeing the development and the growth of all of our sports. When we're talking about the W, we're talking about, you know, soccer, we're talking about now professional women's hockey league. And, you know, tennis has always been the pinnacle.
I mean, I was so excited about this conversation. I absolutely love where tennis has been, where tennis is going, and sitting down with Katrina. She's always fun. She's always a fun time.
So much fun.
So much fun. And this was just a small snippet of our conversation. So make sure you head over to our YouTube channel and check out that conversation. The extended version of other conversations we have already had is a bunch, and we'll be rolling out a lot more throughout the remainder of the year. So make sure you are tapped in, notifications, subscribe, all that good stuff, because you don't want to miss a minute of what we have in store. And speaking of not wanting to miss a minute, the NCAA volleyball tournament is our topic in this week's What's Up Now. The NCAA volleyball tournament bracket was unveiled on Sunday, with the tournament set to begin on Friday. Ahead of the start, Alicia and I are going to give our picks to win the whole thing and why. Now, just to give you some notes in case you haven't been paying attention, no worries, we got you. There's a chance. Listen, Nebraska right now, number 2 overall seed. They went 29-2 in the regular season. They haven't missed an NCAA tournament since 1982. So that's a little bit of a run. They made the final last year, losing to Texas. Following that loss, then freshman Harper Murray said, quote, "I think we're going to win 3, not 1, not 2, but 3 national championships in the next 3 years." Now, the only loss, I know that's right. Listen, the only losses this year are to SMU early in the season, and then number 4 Penn State on November 29th. So recently, they were at Penn State. The Lions also received a number 1 seed in the tourney. Now, if we go to Pittsburgh as well, but before we go into Pittsburgh, before I read those notes, how are you feeling about Nebraska? I mean, 1982 was a crazy run to just even be in the tournament. We've seen some of the best fall short of making the tournament from year in, year out. It's hard.
It's definitely hard. But, you know, listening to Harper, listen.
I like that. Very LeBron James, you know?
Yeah, very much. And also, you know what it's like? Well, I know what it's like to lose in a championship many times, but that's a whole nother story. But when you lose, you know, you're going to come back even bigger and better. And you see it in their regular season, 29-2. They have that history. You know, they have that swag about them of like coming to get it all this year. So I definitely have them picked to be one of the people who will be in the final, one of the teams.
Well, I'm going to skip Pittsburgh for 1 second and go straight to Texas because that is the team that they lost, speaking of Nebraska, to in the final. And
Mhm.
Texas, obviously the reigning national champs. It's hard to say up top. Everyone's coming for you. You got a target on your back. Earned a 3 seed this season. They went 18-6 in the regular season. They had some key wins over Wisconsin, Kentucky, but they also had some losses over Stanford, Minnesota, Oklahoma. The list goes on and on. And obviously, when you talk about the Longhorns, Madison Skinner is still a key player, an X factor if they want to make another run at the title. And Alicia, in any sport, it's hard to go back to back. It's hard to two-peat. Um, I don't know if I'm as confident in Texas to run it back. I think that they're going to have a hard time two-peating this year.
I do not have them in the final, so I agree with you.
Ooh,
But
okay.
also, I think there's always like a upset in
Always.
always in this tournament, and like volleyball especially, like they don't play. There's gonna be an upset. It's guaranteed. We just don't know who's gonna do it. And I do think that this will be a team that will get upset.
I wouldn't be surprised. Listen, sometimes going in there with a little bit of that championship swagger can hurt you more than help you. We've seen it happen.
Oh yeah.
Let's go back to a team though that is making some program history. Pittsburgh,
Yeah, you
number
you
one
can't skip
overall
over
pick.
Pitt. You
I'm
can't
sorry,
skip
I
Pitt.
was trying to like make it flow a little bit, you know. Pittsburgh, number one overall seed for the first time in program history, 29-1 record in the regular season. They have never won an NCAA title. They have made 3 straight final appearances, but no championships. As I've mentioned, their only loss this year was to SMU. They can go toe to toe though with just about anybody. They beat in some of the best, all ranked teams. Listen, you have Olivia Babcock leads the team with 436 kills. Alicia, this is my pick. I know everyone's gonna say, "Oh, the number one pick, real way to risk it." I think I think they're going all the way this year. That's my pick.
Ashley, it's like you're reading my mind. I don't even know. We never talked about this, but Pitt is, I have them in the final match with Nebraska. I have them in that, and I think they will prevail. I do. Nebraska is coming because they're trying to redeem themselves and all of that, but Pitt has that swagger to get the first, and I would love to see them get the first as well, especially being in the 3 straight Final Four appearances. It's like you're right there, but you're just not getting to that championship game. And I really think that they're going to do it this season after looking at their stats, what they've accomplished. And literally in all the interviews that I read, the drive that they have, it just seems unmatched. And I really foresee them taking the whole thing.
Losing can definitely make or break you. And sometimes it's that energy, that chip that you need to push through to that final level. Before we wrap up, we also have to mention Penn State, 29-2 record, 7-time NCAA champions. Their last championship was in 2014. Their last semifinal appearance in 2017. So they're looking to see if they can break through this year. Some big wins over Nebraska, Louisville, Kentucky, Purdue, and then some losses, Pittsburgh, Wisconsin. So definitely a team that we are going to look out for. We can't sleep on any of these teams, honestly.
No.
All 4 of them are phenomenal for a multitude of different reasons, have a lot to prove, have a lot to defend. It's going to be a great tournament, whoever you're voting for, whoever you're going for.
Definitely cannot wait to watch it on all levels. It's just going to be great match after match. Like I can already see it. And I hope some of these people prove us wrong. Okay. Make the tournament good.
Make it good.
I'm here for it. And we just talked about watching the tournament. Well, I just want to thank each and every one of you for watching this episode of We Need to Talk Now. Make sure that you tap in. All of our handles and everything are right here. We're going to have a QR code for you after the episode ends that you'll just tap into so you can be connected on every level. And I guess, until next week, you can watch this episode over and over again. Why not? I mean, and also make sure that you watch that draft and make sure that you watch the tournament because
watch your timeline. It's going to get messy.
Yeah. And we'll be talking about it right here on We Need to Talk Now, presented by AT&T.
Bye, y'all.
See you next week.